As the peeling gilded eaves of the Grand Palace sink into the embrace of the Chao Phraya River amidst the final embers of sunset, a spectral scent of jasmine lingers in the air. Within this court, swathed in spices and the resonance of Buddhist chants, there once existed a name that compelled even the most powerful to fall into hushed silence: Princess Phawa. Should you leaf through the officially chronicled histories of the Siamese royal family, you would find that in certain pivotal years, the pages appear to have been deliberately shredded by an invisible hand, leaving behind an unsettling void. Tonight, by the rhythmic flicker of the hearth, let us step into the true odyssey of her life, a story that requires no effort to remember, only to be felt. Once the most radiant pearl beside the throne, she was commanded to be purged from collective memory at the very zenith of power politics. Rumors whispered of a betrayal of blood and a desecration of the sacred, yet none dared to seek the truth within those eyes once brimming with silent lament. This is a tale of an erased figure, a forgotten enigma, and a soul wandering the periphery of the forbidden. Together, we shall pass behind the shadows of gilded Buddhas to salvage the essence of Princess Phawa from the depths of history. The peripetia of Princess Phawa's fate began not with a cold decree of exile, but within a silk-draped side hall where she first discerned the true hue of power. At that time, Siam stood at the jagged edge where the old world collided with a burgeoning new order. Every cool breeze sweeping through the palace carried the metallic scent of potential coup. Phawa was not a traditional concubine destined to hide behind a fan of smiles. Her countenance bore a clarity and wisdom that seemed tragically out of step with her era. Born of an ancient lineage in decline, her innate austerity and dignity made her appear as a solitary peak among the sea of courtiers. She keenly perceived that the hymns surrounding the king were, in truth, the suffocating cocoons woven by ambitious ministers. She once attempted, in the whispers of the night, to reveal the truth to a pair of eyes as weary as her own, only to be met with deepened vigilance and suspicion. Under the immense pressure of sovereignty, their intimate bond fractured, creating a hairline crack, invisible yet fatal. She understood that within this gilded cage, clarity of mind was an unpardonable sin. As the first withered phoenix flower drifted onto her desk, she knew that the silent hunt, with her as the prey, had begun. The Siamese court was never wanting for whispers of poison or curses, yet the most lethal weapons were often the bloodless instruments of exclusion and isolation. Princess Phawa observed as the attendants who once bowed in supplication began to cast wavering glances. Even the spices in her meals took on an unsettling bitterness. Unlike others, she did not descend into tearful pleas or frantic justifications. Instead, she maintained a composure so dignified it bordered on the frigid, even under the scrutinizing gaze of the public. However, her clandestine correspondence with a similarly marginalized young prince was intercepted. Her words of reform and salvation were maliciously distorted into testimonies of treason. On a night surrendered to thunder and gale, within the side hall that was once her sanctuary, she watched helplessly as the strings of her most cherished zither were brutally severed by guards. No one sought her explanation. In this labyrinth locked by cold logic and prejudice, truth had long since been sacrificed upon the altar of authority. Her name was struck from the royal register. The harsh, scratching sound of the nib against parchment became the singular cadence of her remaining days. That night, the rain over Bangkok fell with such ferocity it seemed intent on washing away the city's very memory, yet amidst the deluge, Princess Phawa rediscovered a long-lost peace. The days of her banishment were spent in a desolate town on the Siamese frontier, a place possessed by endless jungles and humid mists. In less than 3 days, Princess Phawa was transported from the heights of opulence to the depths of desolation. Officially, she was declared dead by illness. In Bangkok, an empty casket filled with stones was laid in state. Yet the real Phawa, clad in the humblest of linen, stood before a dilapidated wooden hut, gazing at a wild mountain landscape she had never before envisioned. Here, she was no longer a sublime princess, but a shadow erased by history, a woman without a title. She began to learn the language of herbs, the art of mending a leaking roof before the monsoons arrived, and the grace of living in harmony with solitude. She discovered that although the chronicles of the land no longer bore her name, the mountain winds and the forest rains confirmed her existence in silence. It was the most humble chapter of her life, yet the most liberated epoch for her soul. For in this corner of the world that even the heavens seemed to have overlooked, she no longer had to perform a role for anyone. She had finally become herself. Yet, the shadows of power are like vines parasitic upon ancient trees. No matter how far one flees, they always find the nutrients to sustain their malice. Years later, when the political tides of Bangkok shifted once more, those who had once cast her out suddenly remembered the erased and brilliant woman. They arrived at the tranquil jungle bearing hypocritical pardons and enticing promises. Princess Phawa looked upon these arrogant emissaries from the capital, her heart undisturbed by even a single ripple. She understood they sought not a returning princess, but a political cipher to be exploited once more. To return was to become a captive of the gilded cage again, to be rewoven into the sordid tapestries of power. On a night of the full moon, she left for the messengers a single sheet of paper, devoid of any writing, and walked alone into the fathomless depths of the jungle. No one knows where she finally went, whether she lived incognito among the mountain folk or dissipated into the swirling mists. The royal chroniclers in Bangkok, recording her trace for the final time, wrote only a vague missing. Thus, she completed the most absolute of defections. She fled not only the throne but the very identity defined by others. She transformed herself into an ungraspable enigma, an eternal exclamation mark pulsating within the fissures of history. The life of Princess Phaua thus drew to a slow close amidst the scent of spices and the rhythmic surging of the Chao Phraya. We are accustomed to chasing the accolades carved into stone, often overlooking the profound sorrow that flows through the blank spaces of history. She was never a frail victim. She was a warrior who reclaimed her dignity through silence amidst utter darkness. She teaches us that when the entire world seeks to erase your name, the flame within remains your only true coordinate. Just as she stood vigil over a solitary lamp in the jungle nights, seeking the cadence of life in the boundless hush. You, at this moment, may be navigating the anxieties of being misunderstood or overlooked, or perhaps feeling adrift before an unknown future. But pray, believe that within every life exists a space of white paper. A void that belongs only to you, requiring no justification to others. It resides not in chronicles, nor in the idle talk of men, but in every resolute breath you take. Tonight's story has ended. The mists of Siam have dispersed, and the world outside has surrendered to total silence. May the elegance and tenacity of Princess Phaua be transformed into the softest silk within your dreams, carrying you toward that most serene and liberated shore.
Gut nicht, and may sweet dreams attend you.